Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
When your product doesn't show up until the second or third sales call, you lose momentum and deals. Walnut fixes that. It gives your reps interactive demos they can personalize and use so every buyer sees a consistent story every time. The result? Faster cycles, higher conversion from demo to op, and better forecasting based on real product engagement, not guesswork. You ramp reps faster and close more without adding SE headcount. Go to walnut.com and hit Get Started to see how you can turn revenue targets into reality with the team you already have.
Hello, everybody. It's Sam Jacobs. I'm in the Denver Art Museum. If I sound strange, that's why. It's episode 112 of Topline, the podcast. I'm joined by my co-hosts, AJ Bruno, CEO of QuotaPath, Asad Zaman, CEO of STA.
What's up?
No longer will be known as Sales Talent Agency.
There we go.
At some point in the future.
Right.
And we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI.
Sam, this is like Sam's first time recording. We are 10 minutes into the hour, and we have finally started recording. Sam has left the room two times, has come back, switched microphones and AirPods, adjusted his hair.
I'm a world traveler, and I'm in the Denver Art Museum, and you can't stop me.
Sam, what are your best, not being tired? What's the word I'm thinking of? I'm losing words now. When you land. When I
jet lag?
Jet lag, yeah, that's the word.
Tired. Eloquent guy.
Yeah, what's your best jet lag tips?
My best jet lag tips.
You guys are on fire today.
We're just crushing it.
These are, again, just got to harken back. Thank you for the coaching dragon fruit. These are what's known as viral moments. In today's podcast, we'll be talking about Sam's jet lag tips and also whether or not he's been effectively recording the podcast. My best jet lag tip is to exercise as soon as possible when you get to the new place so that you can get the juices flowing. I also advise cat naps. Yesterday, I hit a wall right around 5, and I had to host a dinner. And I took a 30-minute nap at the
during dinner.
No, before dinner, and it worked wonders. And,
awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
The exercising is interesting. I've never heard that one before. So thanks for the tip.
I think exercising is probably the key to most good things in life. Asad, how are you?
I'm good. I am sleeping a bit better because I found an eye mask that fits on. My biggest challenge is my head is too big for most eye masks. So when I wear them, the blood gets constrained and I get bad dreams and I wake up irritated. And so I found one that's big enough for my head. So now I'm actually sleeping. It's a very strange feeling.
Sleeping is very important.
Seems to be. I'm a much nicer and happier person now.
When I saw Huberman said that the hierarchy of health and longevity begins with sleep. It goes sleep, exercise, nutrition as the 3 things, but in that order, meaning sleep is more important than nutrition.
I'm so much more optimistic if I just get some decent sleep, optimistic and a nice person. I can deliver constructive feedback in a very uplifting way. And when I'm tired, I'm sad, depressed, the world's falling apart. If I have feedback to give, you might have a tear at the end of it. It made you're a different person. You're just a different person.
My four ingredients for optimism are sleep, caffeine, exercise, and the love of a good partner.
Yeah, I was hoping there would be that in that list. Humans are built for companionship. If you don't have it, it's hard to be your best self.
Yeah, it really is.
Any form of companionship.
Shall we talk about go-to-market and the fact what the operators of the world are doing in our ecosystem?
I think their opinions are missing and are needed, so we will do exactly that. Okay, let's talk about AI and go-to-market. It's interesting because during a phase shift, you have to revisit certain conversations a few times in a year as new information presents itself. And You have to see if you change your view about any of these things. So we want to talk a bit about the impact of AI on the future of work, specifically in the context of go-to-market. And I was pulling up some data more at a macro level just to frame our conversation to see what's happening already across the economy. Maybe that can inspire some thoughts from us on the go-to-market side. So the role that is projected to be displaced the most right now is actually the data entry clerk. They project that by 2027, there'll be 7.5 million less jobs in that space or in that function, the largest drop caused by AI. At least that's the projection.
But just to be clear, does that role exist in any tech companies that we know of?
Are you telling me, Asad, I have to fire all my data entry clerks?
We're talking about law firms, I hope.
You'd be surprised.
What are they going to do? Joe, Sally, and Fred.
A lot of
team
BPO,
of 3 data entry clerks.
a lot of BPO is data entry. Think about that.
But clerk? I don't understand the word clerk there. I'm getting stuck on the word clerk here, guys.
I do want a clerk in my business. Like, I think it's a missing
with
title.
A green, like an accounting with a green lamp. And like
yeah, there used to be a
visor.
Thing. Just like, you know, back in the day, if you went in an elevator, there was always a person that was there to press the button. That's gone missing. I miss that person. When I
hired one of those for STA. STA has its own doorman, actually.
So in Pakistan, you still have them. So when I first came here and I went into an elevator and I was like, where's the person? Like, who's going to take me up or down? It was like a bit of an adjustment period for me. Okay, getting back on track. Google's 2024 layoffs were mainly impacted their ad sales team. And at the time, they were talking about how they've implemented AI within that team that is changing how they deliver the product to the customer, B, how they sell to a customer and service the customer. Microsoft in 2023 had announced that 30% of our code has been written by AI. Soon after, they fired 6,000 engineers. IBM paused the hiring of 7,800 back office hires. So if people are saying, oh, it hasn't impacted workers yet, it very much has. More on this. Big tech hired 25% fewer newer grads in 2024 than in 2023. On the startup side, new grad hiring was down 11% year over year between 23 and 24. Unemployment for new grads is at 6% today in the US, which is the first time that the unemployment rate for new grads is higher than the average unemployment rate in the market. It's the first time that's happened. You can't not take that into account. Underemployment, which is something people don't spend enough time thinking about, is at 40% for undergrads. And there are about 167 million workers in the US. And so if you think about this scenario in which unemployment jumps up significantly, let's say it goes to 10% or 15%, do we even know what to do in that instance? Have we experienced this before? Really, we've only experienced similar levels twice for a very short period of time, great financial crisis and then COVID shut down, but quickly we bounced back. We actually haven't been in a market where for a very long period of time, 15, 20% of people have been unemployed. And we don't know how to manage the impact of that in a consumption-based economy. Most of our GDP is consumption-based. And so if these people are not working, they're not earning, their purchasing power goes down. What happens to the economy? Really, we haven't tested this. So that's the overall situation. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of go-to-market, Sam, when you hear that data, what are you gut reaction thinking when you see some of these data points?
Well, the first thing is your jump from 6%, a couple reactions. First, can we properly define underemployment? You said 40% of the workforce is underemployed. What does underemployed mean?
Underemployed is basically you come out of university, you've gone in there to study, let's say, software engineering, and you come out of university and you cannot find an entry-level software engineering job. So you find employment, but maybe it is a part-time job. Maybe it's a job that's not in your field. And so you are underemployed in that instance.
Okay. I think I think right now we have no signs that we're going to 10 or 15% unemployment, just to be clear. So that would be a fairly catastrophic change in our economic framework as I understand it right now. But that stat that you said, I think is really, really interesting, and I don't have any fully formed reaction to it yet. Maybe in the future I will. But the 6% of new grads unemployed versus the overall unemployment rate, and I think the overall unemployment rate is probably, I think, 3 or 4%. That's wild. And then I'm thinking, what is the role for entry level people with no skills? And to the point of like me having to part ways with those 3 data entry clerks, I don't have a good react. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's really, really interesting, and I wonder what's going to happen to those folks. And I don't know.
I'll give you a conversation I had on Sunday. I had a conversation with one of the very senior partners at one of the very large management consulting firms. And these firms have usually been a hotbed for undergrad hiring.
Yeah.
They will hire people from the top universities, train them up,
You go to get trained. It's like there's 2 paths, 2 knowledge worker paths if you come out of a good school: investment banking and strategy consulting. And
exactly.
You learn business, basically.
He's like, we've stopped hiring them. He's like, we're not hiring any. He's like, in my team, I'm hiring 0 this year. He's like, I cannot justify it anymore. Whatever they would do, I can do it now using technology much faster. People that have experience can just do the task in like a few minutes through a prompt. He's like, now I just can't justify spending the time to train these people up. Instead, we're focused on people that have a little bit more experience and bringing those people in. But we've literally stopped, is what he said. And this is a person who is generally a naysayer for AI about a year ago. So to go from kind of a naysayer to where he is right now, and he's not alone in that space, it's really interesting. AJ, what do you think happens to people that are coming out of university? How do they enter the workforce if these jobs are going away?
I have some data for you guys on this, internal data, quota path data. I think, like, to the point though earlier, let's just also address where some of this came from. The founder of Anthropic, makers of Claude, came out and said, like, we're not being dire enough about this as a society, right? That there's 15 to 30%. I think that's where the number came from. Asad was the conversation last week that he had. So I wanted to address that.
His name's Dario, right?
Dario.
Yes, that's correct.
Good name, by the way, Dario.
Yeah.
That's a great name. That's like you're a founder. You're either a celebrity or you're a founder.
I don't know his last name, but it's not as good.
No.
Amode.
Yeah, see, it's like,
Well, if you just go by Dario, there aren't many other Darios in this world. He's a Brittany. So anyway, the point being is that I interviewed every single one of my engineers. As you all know, I've been on this hunt to figure out who is just like full on coding with these agentic coding tools: Cursor, Replit, Lovable, Bolt, of course. And what I found is that there's a 20 to 30% productivity boost. That productivity boost comes from 3 different areas. One is context for unfamiliar code. 2 is helping with testing and figuring out where there's issues in the code. And the 3rd is it's like an assistant or an intern with menial tasks and repeatability, something that you would give a low-level engineer the ability to do. That 3rd one is the important one. That's the one we're talking about right here.
That's interesting, right?
So, but here's what I will say. And I also had, funny enough, I was had like a Reddit notification pop up from the subreddit Temple that someone asked the question, should I just transfer out of being a CS major right now? That was the question that was posed by a junior. And there's a lot of like really interesting thoughts there. But here's my take. We have had every year 6 to 8 Drexel co-ops that we have. We've hired our best engineers, our Drexel co-op, one that has completely and solely built HubSpot tools by himself. He's a 10x engineer. I won't say him by name because I don't want anyone out there to try to recruit him. So, but he's a 10x engineer. We have 2 of our lead squads are former Drexel co-ops. And this fall,
what is Drexel co-op?
So it's like an intern. Drexel has a 5-year program. Yeah, Drexel's a university here in Philadelphia that runs like it's a requirement that you have to have a co-op program or internship during your 5 years. So the point being is that we're still going to have a class of 4 to 5 Drexel co-ops in the fall. Why? Because in this world of AI, you still have to have and develop the best engineers to become, or the ones that are thinking the most in terms of AI. Guess what their background was? Drexel co-ops. So I am like bullish there, but I think this goes to something that Kyle Norton, we can talk about the GTM side of it. Kyle and Jason Lemkin talked about in the podcast, which is like the cream of the crop. The top folks are still going to be like paid well, and they're going to be gainfully employed. It's just like other 50 to 60% is like, what do we do about that? And how many of those are just like, we just don't have jobs for you anymore?
Sam, when you hear that, and it's fair, like when I hear that, I say, based on today's version of the technology that we have, made sense. But what if we just play this thought exercise of imagine that whatever you're using, the best model you're using, the best AI technology out there in code gen and everywhere else, let's just assume within their labs, they have something that is 100% better. It's just not ready for prime time. And that's generally a good way to think about technology. When you're using it, they've got something else that's better that's just not ready for you. So as these technologies get a lot better, the need for those entry-level people and for that to be a path seems to become less and less viable over time. And one could just argue that you would look for people that have a little bit of experience, that know how to use the tools really well, and you just focus on them. Why teach somebody the ones and twos when you can get somebody that already can produce at a high level? Why would you bother?
Asad, you know the answer to that.
Why?
I mean, we create structure and repeatability in our own businesses. We enable and have our team. We don't want them to coming up with the answers, because then everybody's like rowing in different directions.
I don't know if I would want junior, like straight out of university people if I didn't have to hire them. Like I have no like loyalty to that group. I'm just like, I'll hire the best people I need to hire to get from point A to point B. Like this ain't a charity. Like I'm running a business. I will make the most.
Well, the reason we do it is one part work ethic, but the other part is just kind of pay. Like it's just known that like, hey, we're developing younger talent. We're going to pay them less. They're learning and growing. And if they prove themselves,
you
then
pay
we'll
them
pay
less
them
than an AI technology that will do it for a fraction of the cost. That's what let's assume that more and more of it gets automated away. So it'll get automated for cheaper for the technology to be viable, right? We can already see the things it can do. It does cheaper than the humans can do, right? It just needs to do more of those things for that job to not make sense financially even. And then it's not like as they grow within your organization, you pay them less. Like at some point, your comp is defined by market. And so they get paid market. And so you could just go into market and hire a person at a certain level of experience. Why would you care about junior employees and the burden of hiring them?
You're still going to have some level of people behind this thing running them. And you want those people that are coming into the business to be setting what those processes and standards are for your organization. You have to centralize.
People?
I mean, no, the inexperienced people, I'm saying. You were saying that you would want to hire people that are coming in and building their own. I mean, what I heard, maybe I misheard you, is building their own AI processes or trying their own tools and doing things.
No, I want people that I'm hiring. What the argument I'm making that I think is worth thinking about is if you don't need a junior person who you hire that doesn't have skills, just has lots of potential. And you have to nurture that potential to turn it into skills and domain knowledge that they can then use to drive value for you. And there is a management burden of hiring them, training them, all of that. If you just don't have to, because the technology does it, if you don't have to ride a horse because there's a car, right? Like if you don't need them, then instead what you can hire are people with experience that will come in and use these tools that maybe you have centrally mandated. Maybe there's a balance of central mandate and some experimentation within functions to figure out what's most cutting edge agent to use for XYZ. But you're hiring people that have more experience because you don't need those people. And the tasks they would do to support the more experienced people are just being done by technology, by AI for the more experienced person.
Experience doing what? Like
any function, engineers. Like
so, what you're saying there is that they have the context to be able to direct agents or whatever in the right direction.
I have some thoughts now.
Please.
I finally have some.
He's been sitting there in Denver, in the Denver Museum
I've been
of
sitting here
Art.
thinking, what are my thoughts? And now I have some. So first, I think we have to redefine what entry level means. So that's one part. Your consulting person has a conception about what it means to be an entry level person, and that's probably a function. And I like 4-year institutions. I liked college, and I'm glad I went to college. But I think maybe it's sort of an implicit condemnation of what people are learning in college, that they're coming out, and this consultant believes that they basically don't have any utility, right? That they spent 4 years being trained. It was unclear what they were trained to do, and therefore he has no use for them because AI, AI does the things that what he thinks of as entry level, AI does those things.
Yeah.
But if you think about any technology revolution or any automation, there's always been entry level people doing the most menial task, and as that gets automated, there still tends to be entry level roles that just move one level up when it comes to sort of like value delivery. So I think, so in that world, what does it mean? What will emerge? I still think that there will be training institutions and development institutions, whether you call them apprenticeships, guilds, colleges. There's going to be a place that recognizes that, Asad, you don't want to hire somebody that doesn't have some of these skills. And so they're going to spend time developing those people into those skills. And it's the same thing as, any boot camp, but it'll be an AI boot camp where that person that wants to be developed, whether it's, and some of those people will be developed in undergrad, so that the idea of what is entry level will change. And you will simply expect that entry level people are AI native and can do all kinds of higher level, more strategic work. And if there is GDP growth that comes from AI, which is, the implicit idea that like the economy is empowered, that creators can create more, operators can build more, then there should be more jobs. We haven't seen any technical revolution or technological revolution over the history of mankind where there has been net job destruction. It is true that there's been dislocation, but there are more jobs today than there were in the 50s and the 30s, and more than there were in the 1800s, even though technology has replaced all of the work that those people were doing, like, building railroads or building cars or using robots or whatever it may be. So that's one thing, I think. And then a related thought, which is, we're here at the CRO Summit, and Irina walked up to me, Irina Novoselsky, who's the CEO of Hootsuite, before she went on stage, and we were just laughing about how, really about Michael Mallon's LinkedIn post, the one that I sent to you guys. And my friend, who is the former chief product officer at myheritage.com, which was, a competitor to Ancestry.com, and is like a big time product leader, talked about how the interface of AI is actually quite calming. But the fear, like the feeling that all of us have about AI, is this existential dread. And Irina was talking about how she wakes up in terror in the middle of the night because she feels like everybody, including us, is like, and there's like one or two people, maybe it's Kyle Norton, maybe it's Jason Lemkin, maybe like there's a few people and that are like, I know what's happening with AI. I'm on top of it. If you don't know what's on top of it, you're missing out. You're a loser. You should be terrified. Like, I'm surprised you're still breathing. Why are you occupying space on planet Earth? You're occupying my space. I want your, get out of here, you loser, you stupid loser. And my point is, like, all of us.
Sam is staring right at me when he says this, by the way. I just noticed that.
My point is, like, we all have this fear. And what is one place where I can articulate, where I can specify that fear manifesting itself? And here's where it is. So your consultant friend is rightfully apprehensive. The worst thing that can happen right now in your organization, if you're listening to this and you're an executive or an operator, is that you are allowing people that are not AI forward to hire people
that are not AI forward.
That are not AI forward. And what I mean is, I'm seeing even my organization, people drafting job descriptions for junior talent that have no relationship to the current world of AI. And so you have these people that are still locked in this. And what does this mean? This is inefficient capital allocation. This is we've got people that are allocating capital that are managers on our team, and they are not aggressive enough because they still think that like ChatGPT is is a novelty, is a fun tool, and they don't understand that your idea of a junior role. So what does all this mean? What is a junior role? There is no non-technical role in any organization unless you are, a deep relationship expert. Unless you are a salesperson that can manage relationships and work with AI, you cannot be in operations, any kind of back office field, and not be technical. And so even though maybe the person should drop out of CS on that Reddit subreddit, like everybody needs to be understand how to work with APIs, how to use, whatever the new acronym is, MPC, like how to hook up databases so that, how to build a clay table and connect it to Claude and then run some kind of, enrichment campaign and then deploy that against a campaign subset. But, and this is, I'm saying this because I know that not everybody at Pavilion listens, but like we have to make sure as CEOs that we do not let hiring managers in our organization dumb down our capital allocation, and that we are bringing in AI native people, regardless of their team, seniority or tenure.
Sam, this is like such an interesting point because I'm curious. I'll ask you guys the question. I'll answer it first, which is like, I've been in software for 15 years. I've been building products for 15 years, but I have always worn like, okay, I'm not technical. It's kind of a badge of honor in some ways. Like I hire people that are much, much smarter than me at building products and know what they're doing. But the last 3 months, I spent 3 hours just this weekend on Bolt. And it is just so interesting to watch it code and then watch it come to life in a preview. And my friend who's a teacher, actually my daughter's coach, basketball coach, sent me a note. He's like, AJ, I have these like handwritten calendars. Like I'm trying to figure out how to get this into Apple Calendar. I've asked GPT to do it. Like, how do you do it? And I was like, I'll just try it with Bolt.new. And it got, there's some playing with it, but it got so close to actually just building the website with the calendars. And then you can export the invite to iCal, and that's it. And I did it just through a screenshot. It took less than like 5 minutes to get to that point.
Dude,
and so
insane.
Point you're making, Sam, is that if you are definitely still on the skepticism and pushing away, just spend an hour trying it out and messing around with some of these tools, because you'll start to become a believer. Now, the challenge is scalability and again, context. So like you can get to a certain point. And I think my take is right now we're still at like for someone like me, a prototype MVP stage. Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to spend 3 hours Friday afternoon with my CPO Wyndham, and we're just going to build in Cursor for 3 hours together. That's what we're going to use as our whiteboarding session on Friday. And you just have to lean into those moments. So when I listen to Kyle say like, oh, our reps have a 1 in 40x quota to OTE ratio now. I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense. He didn't actually say that, but it feels like I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. You are not the loser. I promise you. I'm talking to you, Sam, now. You're not the loser in this, but we're all like just learning this together. And it's such a great feeling, honestly.
I think
it's both a good feeling and a terrifying feeling. Because
that's true.
I'm now literally, as you said that, AJ, I'm like, shit, I better spend 3 hours doing Cursor. I don't even have a head of product. I better spend 3 hours this weekend not playing with my kids so that I can
leave you behind. I'm going to say, can you build a copy of Pavilion's website?
but
Sam, when you said you were laughing at that post, was that in like oh wow, this is like someone that's really fearful? Because you sent it to Asad and I, you said this seems like an important post. So I'm curious as to like, what are your actual thoughts on that post? Because I didn't quite get it.
I wasn't laughing about it. I was saying that like there's something strange about there's something strange, but maybe it's just reality. Maybe it's just the markets at work, that this technology that makes everything easier, that you can talk to anytime you want, that can be really reassuring and supportive when you're going through a difficult time. When the whole, Johnny and Sam are like working together to like move away from screens as a form factor, to have this ever-present, calming, screenless interface so that you can be more present in the real world. Like all of the work of AI, the purpose of it in many ways is to remove this application layer, to remove this database layer that we've all been forced to interact with, right? Like we've all grown up and like you got to enter information in forms, and then that forms get written to a database. And like the whole point of AI is like just talk to it, it can talk to you back, and it could be very natural, and you can like look around at the room that you're in and not have to stare at a screen. And isn't it beautiful to be human and to be present? And in many ways, it's like this new world of wellness, of like awareness and presence and calm, at the same time that all of us feel like if I don't spend 3 hours coding in Bolt or in Lovable or in Replit, like my job's going to go away, the company's going to be destroyed. If I'm not, Fixer that just announced they went from 2 to 10 million in 5 months in ARR. Again, all of it's like POC revenue. It must be. I don't know what ARR means anymore, but who cares? But like, it's this feeling of terror that we have, coupled with the reality that like the whole point of this stuff is to calm and make it easy to use technology. I find that the contrast is sort of startling, because I do feel like the main feeling that everybody has about this beautiful, powerful technology is it's supposed to scare the poop out of you.
Are you ready to level up your go-to-market strategy for 2026? Then don't miss GTM 2025, the only B2B tech conference exclusively for go-to-market executives. Join 1,000 other revenue leaders this September 23rd to 25th in Washington, D.C. for an exclusive executive-only experience. This 3-day event is hyper-focused on connection, strategy, and execution. Expect hands-on workshops, in-depth strategy sessions, and curated opportunities to build relationships with VPs, CXOs, and founders facing the same challenges you are. You'll stress test your GTM approach, align your team, and leave with real, actionable insights from top-performing leaders. Don't miss the must-attend conference designed to help you boost go-to-market results in 2026. Visit attendgtm.com, that is attendgtm.com, to secure your spot today. And don't forget to use the code TOPLINE for 10% off your GA ticket.
Maybe that is the thing that is in a moment that can make you feel so calm, and that can create such an elegant way for you to get things done. Maybe as we extrapolate that out across society over some more time, as the technology gets better, we realize what that really means. And when I'm underslept and slightly pessimistic, I think of displacement a lot, because there are a lot of jobs, a lot of people, a big chunk of the economy are people in jobs that you can see going away as AI gets better, but especially as robots and AI get, let's say, 3 to 5 times better than they are today. Factory workers, maybe we have half as many as we have today. Who's going to be working in food services, drivers? You start like playing that out, and you're like, okay, in the past, yes, we have always found that as technology goes through society, we have the industrial revolution, the economy grows, more jobs come out of it, jobs change, people adjust, there's some short-term pain. But we've never had it at a pace that we could have it this time. That's the counter argument people make, is what about the pace? And David Friedberg in the All In podcast, he's like, sure, but the cost of everything will come down. Because he gave the example of, if you look at a restaurant and all the humans that have to do things in that restaurant to give you your food, if all of that's done by a robot, maybe the cost comes down. Sure, but if a person's on food stamps, they still can't afford it at half price. They can't. They're eating canned tuna. And that is, I think, it's not there is a realistic chance of that happening in the short term. I'm very bullish about the fact that the technology has the potential to create an abundant future. I do think that humans are generally bad at modeling in human greed and evilness into their projections of the future. It is dependent on, will people allow that to happen, or will they hoard? And in the past, all the data says we're hoarders, and so why would it create an abundant future is something that on a pessimistic day, I spend some time ruminating about, and it does scare me a little bit.
Well, but look at the history. I guess the answer, I think 2 things to what you're saying. The first is look at history, and so far, the history is that technology has created abundance, and that there are fewer people in poverty, there are fewer people malnourished, there are more people read than ever before.
Less violence.
Yeah, it's a more peaceful world. There's still plenty of problems, and the pessimists there are always going to be pessimists. And, if we're all hearing about everything that happens all over the world every minute, then yeah, you're going to cherry pick some terrible things. But generally speaking, life is pretty good for most people. And I've been even thinking about that for climate change, because again, people want to sell us that like climate, that, there's going to be endless hurricanes and endless drought. And maybe there will be, but I find that we've been pretty resilient over the last 10,000 years in terms of as a species and as a race. So that's one thought.
I agree.
And at the same, but I do think that something is missing as we're talking, and what's missing, I think, is like an integrated theory, like an integrated philosophy of what life is supposed to be like on the other side of this, and that is what's missing. I think there's a lot of technologists that are just saying progress itself is the solution, is the answer. And it belies the reality, to your point, Asad, that there's dislocation. The reason that all of these nationalists, the reason that, Trump resonates with so many people, in the United States, is because they feel like technology is not supporting them. And they feel like their way of life isn't being supported, and that they are being abandoned by, a world that they thought that they helped build. And what happens to those people that are undereducated? Like the New York Times did this big analysis, and if you're not college educated, you are like significantly more likely to vote, Republican and Democrat.
100%. Yeah.
And so you think about these folks that are not college educated, that don't have some of these technical skills, and you say and the jobs in the restaurants go away, and the jobs in other places go away. So what happens to those people? And this is where a philosophy would be helpful, to say, I don't know what happens to those people, and I hope that part of it is the market forces will compel them to retrain themselves. That's how it works, right? Like you got to adapt or die. And I don't mean literally, I just mean like the market is a cruel mistress, but it propels us forward in some ways. Then the other might be, maybe there are new jobs that'll emerge that are less technical. Maybe you run a robot factory that's making thousands and thousands of robots. That's what Mark Andreessen was saying, that the domestic manufacturing that we should be focused on is not building iPhones, but making, this army of iRobots that Elon wants us all to have, and that we probably will have. I don't know what happens to the future of the human race, and it is quite scary. And then the last thing I'll say is this, however, and this is like a random anecdote that has nothing to do with anything, but it has something to do with like, what is a world that might evolve? We went for a run this morning at the CRO Summit, and everybody met downstairs at 7 a.m. and everybody was in, you think you're in good shape, and the three of us all, I know, spend time on our fitness, and these people come downstairs and they are ripped. Everybody's ripped these days. Now, this is a specific cut of the world, and I'm in a white collar, situation. But 20 years ago or 40 years ago, if this was the mid 80s or the mid 90s, and everybody was at a business conference, everybody would be staying up all night drinking whiskey and doing blow, and be extremely hungover the next day, and everybody would be fat, and there would be much more obesity. And so, what is my point? I do believe that like the world is becoming more well. So I don't know how that relates to technology, except to say that maybe we are evolving in some way, and maybe it's not as dire as we think, and maybe people don't really need to be rescued to the same extent that sometimes progressives think, but maybe people just need to be trusted to develop themselves.
Real quick though, real quick on the fitness, what Sam doesn't realize, speaking of which, this is so funny, Sam's watch face, he's had it up and he has some numbers on it. And I've been staring at those numbers and I'm like, I wonder how my numbers compare. And I literally went to my watch during this conversation just to see. And I'm behind you on flights climbed. I think you're at 10 flights climbed. But what's your distance? What do you have distance right now?
879 calories and 485 exercise minutes, which I don't even know how that's possible since I barely.
But you don't. What's your distance? You don't have your distance on there?
No, I don't have my distance on.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm at 5.68 just for the record. So anyway, this is like literally to your point. You become like, technology makes me so competitive where I'm just like
but healthy
in a good way. Yeah. So here we are.
What does that have to do with like what we're talking about is these jobs? I see a lot of positive progress. Last thing I'll say, and again, what did ChatGPT said? I'm the soul of the podcast. But
it also said Sam takes 85% of talk time.
All right, I'll stop talking.
I'm just kidding. Sam, go ahead. You said Sam, you can't leave us hanging. You literally said the last thing I'll say.
Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle talks about like this revolution of human awareness, and that we are evolving as a species to become more present and less fixated on things that we can't have, and in a way like that there's this breakthrough that might be possible that's happening. And it sounds like stupid, hokey, woo-woo nonsense sometimes when you think about it and you think about all the bad things in the world. But I just looked at all those people that were in like amazing shape, and we all went for a run this morning, and that's what we're doing at a business conference. And some part of me just has optimism for the future. I think things, there's a big argument that like things are getting really good, and that we don't need to be so terrified all the time.
I'll give a counter opinion to it. I'm generally the optimist, but I'm enjoying playing this pessimist role today. I agree with the fact that the long arc of history has shown massive improvement in the quality of life, right? Like it wasn't too long ago where wars were fought, where people on horses were standing on the opposite end of a field, running at each other with swords and bows and arrows were flying around. Like that wasn't all that long ago. Like 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, that stuff still happened. And so there is massive improvement, but it is also undeniable that there is inequality, income inequality, let's say, has also increased. In the US, it has increased over the last couple of decades, not decreased. And the thing about income inequality that's really interesting is that even if the low end of let's say everybody's on a spectrum of income, the lowest end and the top end, let's say the lowest end still has good purchasing power. They're making good money. But the gap between the richest and the poorest it has become significant. It still leads to animosity and volatility in society. Now, if you're in a world where their purchasing power does not enable a good quality of life, that gets exasperated. And the fear is, I actually really agree with what you said, Sam, that we do need some type of more thought given to how we're going to stomach the displacement that is going to happen at a pace that seems to be faster than we have seen in previous phase shifts, because it will, that is the downstream of this. We can probably manage it and stomach it if we are thoughtful about it, but there is this missing piece that makes us all fear that, hey, there might be millions of people that are in a really tough spot. And maybe those millions of people, but getting retrained, you need institutions that are retrained. Like, are we doing enough over there to allow them to reintegrate into society and create a good quality of life for themselves? And since there isn't as much being done on that front, there's a lot being done to push the technology forward, not enough being done on that side. It does create some fear and anxiety in society. Hopefully there will be some philosophy that we can all latch on to. Lemkin was talking about, I think it was the session he did with Kyle and AJ, where he was talking about SDRs that are doing inbounds, CSMs, roles of that nature. And he's like, I think in 12 months, they're all gone, was his take. Now, forget the timeline and forget the all, but just say in the medium term, the majority of those roles are gone. Would you agree or disagree with that statement? And point B to the question being, what in go-to-market, what do you think is gone in let's say 12 to 24 months? Do you see any roles just disappearing completely?
I just want to remind everyone that Jason Lemkin, like last year was very negative on Clay, for the record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'll find the clip from it.
I love people who change their mind about things, so that's actually really positive.
I know, but he just has strong opinions on it. This 12 to 24 months is like a perpetual number that people just use. Like we heard this, Mark Roberge talked about this like 12 months ago. He said, okay, I'm going to make the declarative statement. I'm in a room full of CROs. Do you exist in 12 months, in 12 to 24 months?
That was a bit aggressive.
Yeah. And I think that it was just kind of an opening, and that gets like that people lean in when you say something like that. This idea of SDRs has been going away for actually quite some time. our quota path doesn't have SDRs. I think there's a lot of companies. I don't know the exact stats, but if I look at sales compensation and roles across it, I bet you I can find some trends over time. And so that will be my homework. And I should have done that. I do not believe that there's this idea that there will just be like one day we'll wake up and everyone's gone. I think where I was arguing with Kyle post this, where I was arguing about it is just that there's companies that are at the tip of the spear. There are a long tail of sales organizations and companies. And I was in New York City and met with a lot of companies. And I asked every single one of them, what are you doing for AI and ops? And they're all different sizes of companies. They're all kind of just using ChatGPT on their own. Like that's their use case right now. And I think a lot of those will get further behind, but I think there's going to be a long time before things like, oh, you use this thing, you use SalesLoft.
You buy one thing and it just does it all for you.
Kyle talked about where you find these secrets where you're like, oh, I got SalesLoft before anyone knew it as a secret. He's currently kind of in the secret phase right now. And other organizations like his are. We're not quite as efficient as they are, but we are fairly efficient compared to where we were 12 months ago. And honestly, this is in 17 years, this is the most efficient sales team I've ever run as a sales leader. 17 years. The efficiency has continued to climb. What I mean by that is if you look at the dollars per FTE, there's some level of sales cycle and ACV and product or whatever. We're doing about $170,000 of new business per sales rep right now per quarter.
Why do you think it is so much more efficient than ever before in your career? Is it like you're going after more measured growth and so the investments are less risky and the inefficiency of those?
No, I think it's technology. I think it's Ryan Milligan. Kyle's an advisor for us. And I think we're actually just really working on training and enablement on how to really make us as efficient as possible and make sure the team's calendars are 4 to 5 demos a day, even sometimes, and just making it really clear and automating a lot of the follow-up and processes and notes using momentum and other tools that just take it off. It's just similar to what we were saying with engineers, where engineers have a junior level engineer that does some of these menial tasks. It's 30 to 40% more productive for our sales team than it ever has been previously.
Sam, you are at this conference with some of the best CROs in the world. And what are your thoughts on what AJ just said about the speed at which the market is coming to terms with what is possible today, testing, playing with it, implementing it in their odds? You said yourself that one of the most dangerous things a company can do is let people that are not AI native hire. Well, there are a lot of CROs and CMOs and CCOs that are not AI native. And so if the C-level is an AI native, wouldn't the downstream of that be a lot of hiring that's not AI native? Why do you think everybody has been so slow to adopt? Like what's going on there? What can they do? What will help increase the pace of this? Because it feels like a lot of great people are going to have a really choppy part of their career because they'll be just a little bit behind the curve on this thing.
I don't exactly. Well, I think people are old and it's hard to change people's habits and patterns. And I was at a dinner last night and it's not easy. There might be people on a per employee basis might be more efficient, but are people hitting their numbers? Not really.
Yeah.
They're not really hit. Growth, whatever the efficiency metrics are, CAC is up. People do not have scalable demand gen channels. They don't know how to allocate, where they should be allocating capital. Everybody said pipeline is a problem. Now, again, dinner was dinner and maybe it's a bad data set. But I think, the thing that you always talk about, Asad, is 7%? There's 7% growth in the number of software companies every quarter. Mm-hmm. And that number isn't slowing down. And if you look at Bolt and you look at the number of people that can build new apps and new web applications so seamlessly, that it's only going to get more and more and more competitive. And so I think a lot of people are, they feel like they have 15 different things to do, but the number one thing they have to do is not necessarily drive rep efficiency. It is find some way to generate pipeline and to hit their pipeline number. And, I hear that
there's
this
that
time-
saying that you have 1,000 problems till you have a health problem, and then you have one problem.
Exactly.
There's something similar in companies where like it's almost a luxury to be in a position to be able to like play with AI and figure out how to use it. Because if your issue is you can't hit target, you don't have like if you have like product market fit issues or 2 or 3 of these other problems, really that is the thing you have to worry about more than anything else. You do not have the space mentally. You don't give yourself the permission even to go solve this other thing.
You can't be a
I'll get
co-host
to
on
it.
a.
Like I need.
You can't be a co-host on a weekly podcast. You can't do things like that.
I will say, the feeling I had at dinner last night was 15 years of 0% interest rates and abundant capital. Like it is a different world, and the bar is just higher, and the degree of execution that is required to succeed in this market is very, very, very high. And even though, there are companies like Bolt or Fixer or AI native companies or Harvey or a Bridge that are finding a path to massive, massive growth, primarily I would say through PLG, through some kind of virality or product-led growth, where it's just very easy to use, it's very intuitive, and they can quickly capture people's imagination, particularly executives that are terrified about AI dislocation. But
that was
Go ahead.
That was something that Jason and Kyle talked about, actually. And I know we keep referencing this podcast, but talked about S-tier founders and building go-to-market tools. And you just don't find that many S-tier, quote unquote, S-tier founders or innovators.
For the audience, can you explain what an S-tier founder is?
Really good.
I don't actually know what the S stands for. What's
super?
the S?
Is it like super?
Super duper guy.
A super duper guy.
Currently asking GPT to define it for me, and it's searching terms like super, special, superior, or the Japanese word shu, meaning excellent or outstanding. This designated original in Japan's academic grading system, where S was used to denote a level above the traditional A grade. That's now you learn. But the point being is, in go-to-market, it's so noisy and it's challenging, and it's like, why would an S-tier founder go start a sales compensation management platform and then go build in there? And honestly, it's a question I ask myself every day.
What's interesting is I think about what is the term of go-to-market tech a lot these days. I think I'm going to write a piece on this, because it turns out it might just be a lot smaller than anybody thought. Because people look at Salesforce.
They just look at Salesforce's number.
That's your system of record TAM. Like, what about the application, like the layer below that? And that TAM seems to be like longest stuck at 200-300 million. Like, who's gotten to $1 billion in go-to-market tech?
HubSpot.
But that system of record. Like beyond the system of record, beyond like I am your CRM and marketing cloud, etc. Beyond that, if you're selling an application that is not that central, then what? Like, what is it? I don't know. Like, I'm doing the research right now.
Well, there will be. I mean, that's the whole point. There is going to be an AI GTM tool that will get there. That's like my guess.
It'll displace the system of record if it was to get there. Like I think what I'm coming up with is the fact that to be like multi-billion dollars and go to market tech, you have to play the CRM game and the marketing cloud game. Like that is what that TAM is. The TAM below that, everybody gets stuck at a couple of $100 million in revenue. Everybody's just stuck to that. Like the best of the best are stuck there.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. What are your thoughts, AJ, on compensation in go-to-market? Like, do you see this? How do you think it's going to play out? Who's going to make more money? Who's going to make less money? You're the comp guy and you're the sales comp guy. What happens?
Well, there was this interesting question. Do commissions go down as this technical revolution increases? And I mean, if you have less sellers, then yeah, technically it goes down, but does it go down for the people that are there? And I think the argument for it is like, look, if your team is more efficient, like QuotaPath, I just stated a number, it's gotten more efficient. Have commissions gone up for that team? Yes. Now, the question is that should that be from a cost of sale when we look at it as we continue to scale and grow? Are we going to pull commissions down for the overall team? Well, I think it depends. And that's a lot of like the financial planning part of it. So my my general thesis and thought is that currently today, no, that commissions and compensation will go up, not down, over time. We're going to continue to pay the top earners. I think, in fact, my take is that we're going to pay the top earners even more than they've been paid previously, not less. But I'd be curious, Asad, what do you think about that statement?
I think it's always going to be demand and supply of talent. And so I think the market will set the rate. And I think it'll be dependent on the deal size and sales cycle, because it feels like AI can automate and greatly displace the most transactional sales teams far easier than it can mid-market enterprise. And if that's how it plays out, then I think you won't really see comp increasing in these like SMB focused sales teams at tech companies. But I would think that on mid-market and enterprise, it probably will lead to an increase in compensation for the top tier of people, because if what the tool enables is a person who's really good to drive much greater results, then you'll have the impact of what the 10x engineers had on their comp, where they got paid a lot more than market, right? Like you heard these stories right now about these AI developers getting paid $2, $3, $4, $5 million comp packages, Zuckerberg calling them, people getting packages without interviews, like crazy stuff happening. You would see those type of dynamics play out there. If what it does is it makes your average performer perform far better, like if let's say your team is 50-60% of your team of B players are just crushing numbers now because of the technology, then probably comp goes down or stays flat. I would think that it goes up for enterprise, stays flat or goes down for SMB, mid-market, somewhere in between those two. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that a small number, I think what we're orienting around is a small number of people building a company, all of whom get paid really, really well. And it's still better margins than the huge teams that we used to have. And the final place I come, just because my mind is strange, is I feel like we'll all be in the same place. Like it'll be in office. I just feel like that's what I gravitate towards, even though nobody wants it. Everybody wants remote work. But I just feel like, Kyle started an office.
Is that true for Pavilion?
I think that the joke that I have in my mind is that we're fully remote while I live in Barcelona, and then one day I'll move back to New York and make everybody come to an office. That would be the most unfair thing I've ever done.
I bet you there's a bunch of nervous laughing in the room when you think that joke.
It's hard to deny the advantage that a startup would have by being in person these days, like just the speed at which they can move if you have 20, 30 engineers.
But are these like $60-100 million companies that are 27 people? Are they in person?
I don't know. Some are. Like Windsurf is all in person, I think.
Oh, yeah. You know where they're in person?
Huh?
They're in person in the old Trendkite office in Austin, Texas. That was my office.
Interesting. And Windsurf also has a pretty big San Fran operation. Actually, it's really interesting. All of these AI companies are kind of stone throw away from each other in San Fran, which I think is fascinating. Sam, one of the questions somebody was asking me recently, and you might get similar questions as you go through the conference, is people that are thinking about jobs that are new now that they should orient themselves towards, right? And what is fascinating is if you think about just a year ago, there were a lot of people saying prompt engineering is going to be a job, right? Like if you want to be at the edge of this, become a prompt engineer. And now what a useless job, because the AI you ask the AI to write a prompt and it writes you the prompt. And so you don't need a prompt engineer. And so how do you position yourself if you want to be one of the people that are doing all these new jobs? Do you just have to stomach the fact that you're playing a high risk, high upside game where you might get it wrong and have to pivot, but if you get it right, the upside's massive? Is that just like a mental orientation you need, or is there any other advice you give people that want to be at the edge of all of this?
I guess my advice would be, this is a world of exploration and creativity. I think I've said that in the past. I don't know that you have to think about like my job is going to be a GTM engineer or my job is going to be a prompt engineer. I think what you need to do is use these tools, play with these tools, and show how and someone presents you, here's my business, and you think, here's how I can add value to your business based on what I understand the workflows to be and where I can find automation. And whatever that job is, again, we're hiring an operations analyst to work on Tom Andrews' team.
No, operations analyst clerk, you meant.
Yeah, operations clerk. Please call them an operations clerk. Come on, Sam.
And I want to make sure, because I don't know how much Samantha Carducci uses AI. Like, I want to see, like, what was the case study? What did they do? What did they build? What did they show us that they built? And whatever their job is at Pavilion, it cannot be that it's like this untechnical person that executes manual workflows that we previously designed, because we can't pop our head up and think of like the new, better way to build this workflow.
I can tell you it is extremely depressing, the fact that 9 out of 10 of the conversations I have with CROs, usually if there's a CRO, CMO, CCO that's looking to start exploring the market, somehow I will speak to a lot of them and trying to give them advice on how to think about the market and navigate it. And probably 9 out of 10, I ask them, like, how would you answer the AI question? If the company you're going to wants to hire somebody that's going to be able to keep them at the knife's edge when it comes to AI, what are you going to say about you and AI? And the answers are so bad, Sam. Like, they are generally the best story they have is some blah thing the RevOps team did with AI, and usually has some play thing associated with it, and that's it. And they're like, nah.
No, that's not the only thing they say. Then they say, it's not AI that's going to replace you. It's the people that use AI that are going to. And then they'll say, that's true. That's really true.
Lessons from the past.
Yeah,
okay. On that note, let's end it. But I want to end it with a question today. Something you have recently learned or changed your mind about that could be interesting. You guys think about it, and I'll tell you one that I thought of in the shower.
I've got
today.
one.
Okay, Sam,
you go first. No, you go first, Asad.
Okay. I think you hear this word. I've said this a lot, that the market is saturated, and I've realized that I'm wrong when I say it, because saying that a market is saturated almost means that you think there's no opportunity to enter. There's just too many people doing this thing. There's no point in, like, it's hard to enter. It's hard to create momentum. And when you really, like, I was thinking of this in the shower, so it might be a really stupid idea. But when you think of that, it almost means that for a market to not be saturated, you should be able to enter it and do something relatively similar to the others and still create momentum, which sounds pretty silly to me. And instead, what markets are extremely competitive, meaning that you have to have a differentiated point of view to be able to create momentum in it. But we have seen nothing but countless examples of people with interesting, different point of views entering markets and creating momentum. Restaurants are the perfect example. There is no shortage of restaurants in the world, in any given city, especially the biggest and the best cities. In New York, there's no shortage of great restaurants, but you can enter. And if you create a great product and experience for the customer, you can create momentum. And so I think this idea of thinking of markets as extremely saturated is probably the wrong way to think of them. Markets are hyper competitive, but within hyper competitive markets, there's a lot of opportunity. You just have to be different and right to win in that type of market. So that's my shower thought from today.
I like that. That's a good shower thought, Asad.
Yeah.
Here's mine, and this is from Asad Zaman. And I called Asad about this controversial thought earlier today. So here's what it was. I interviewed Asad for the same show I interviewed you for, AJ, Revenue Blind Spots by Otter. That's coming out in a little while. And on that, Asad said, here's something that was a terrible piece of advice. People said, you're too big a part of the brand of STA, Asad. You need to remove yourself to create enterprise value. There's no durability in the company. There's no, you can't scale it. If Asad's integrated into every piece of it, then how can you sell it? You'd be selling Asad, and people would worry that Asad might want to go home one day and doesn't want to work. And so there's no long-term viability. And he said that was the stupidest advice I ever got, and that I lean in and we're executing well and I'm doing things that I like. And As we know, Asad takes almost every intake call, and is still the one person that handles every conversation with like a major private equity firm or venture capital firm. And people have said, obviously, they have said that times 10 to me, that, what is Pavilion without Sam? You need to find a way to not have Pavilion equal Sam and Sam not equal Pavilion. And that, I think, my instinct is that is wrong. And not even for the purposes of like, because I don't care about enterprise value. I think for the enterprise value of Pavilion, I think it is a reflection of me. And I think like we work best when I'm the one interviewing the members. I'm the one signing people up. 70% of people join because of my LinkedIn. And that's not me being egotistical. That's just saying, working backwards from, let me take somebody less talented and have them do the job that I was doing at an A+ level, and now have them do it at a C+ level because I'm interested in scalability, I think is probably the wrong idea, which is another way of saying founder mode.
Nah, thank you, Sam. I appreciate that.
Those are both really good. I'm going to stick to the one that I kind of had these interview tours with these engineers recently, and going into it, I had these preconceived notion that our team could be doing a lot more with it in terms of coding and how we're using Cursor and hearing about it. But actually, after having the conversations and just listening and understanding how it's being used, I actually think our engineers are using it adequately and leaning in and thinking about ways that they could use it more. I think it's other people in the organization that we could probably use it. And I mean, product is, but I would say that there's a support function to what I want to achieve here, meaning that others could help scope, develop, create, clarify, communicate through these tools in a better way. And that starts with me. So rather than looking at this as like, oh, this is a problem to solve at the engineering level, I'm taking this on, and this is a problem to solve at the CEO level. And something that's why I'm really trying to learn how to like use the tools the best I can and become more technical, and just diving into it and just learning as much as I possibly can. So I've changed my mind on that a bit.
I love that.
That's great.
Nikesh Arora said that they asked him, what are your go-to-market insights from scaling rural and then Palo Alto? He's like, product. I spend most of my time in product now.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, y'all. Another great episode. Great seeing you both. I want to give a shout out to the Denver Art Museum Wi-Fi. It worked pretty well.
Not bad, right? Better than Philly in Age's house.
we got it. Your mic held up a little bit this time, Asad. You had a couple times where I'm like kind of back.
We're getting there, Age. We're getting there.
We did it.
Yeah,
we did
step
it.
by step. Okay,
112, 13 episodes in. We're figuring this out. See you all later.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.